tornadoes form. So the definition of a tornado is that tornadoes form from a rotation in a funnel cloud from a supercell storm. And there has to be enough instability in the air and in the storm for it to collide from the warm and cold air. There has to be enough moist air, warm and cold, and just enough instability in the air for everything to rotate. The dangers of this tornado is that it does not matter the length, the width, or the size, or how much wind there is that causes the damage. So with a tornado, if you hear a tornado siren and you know there's a tornado warning in the area, that means you need to take shelter immediately. Get to a part in your house where there's no windows and nothing for anything to hit you. And the meaning of a tornado is that it's a big, large thing of like strength of wind and moist air and just a really big cloud. So right here I'm showing a forming of like a tornado like that has like all like the jet stream, the cool dry air, the warm front, and like the tornado valley and the warm moist air coming from the south. So with that, there's going to be enough instability in the air for a tornado to form. And with the warm and cold air colliding from side, that means there's enough moist air from the other side coming for a tornado to form. So with that, there has to be enough moist air coming from the south. So from like the Gulf of Mexico, and then from how warm the ocean or how warm from the south is coming. So from the recent tornado damage in Bakersfield, there was multiple damage from like houses. Everything was taken in Bakersfield, almost everything. People got like their houses taken away, even their jobs, because the tornado in Bakersfield that went through Bakersfield was an EF3 of winds of 140 to 145. And there were 3 fatalities and several injuries. So from the pictures I've shown here, there was trees that's fallen down, twisted, and just fallen on houses, and then buildings just torn away, and just debris everywhere. So this just shows that tornadoes, it does not matter how big or anything. It just matters that you get to a safe place, and tornadoes can just ruin anything in its path. So the wind scale, so I'm going to talk about the strength of winds and the type of damage. So with an EF1, it's a 73 to 112 miles per hour with moderate damage. So that just means, yes, there's going to be damage, but it does not mean there's going to be like severe damage, like your roof coming off your house. That just means like some shingles are going to come off your house and moderate damage to like your car if it's not in the garage. And with an EF2, it is 133 to 157 miles per hour. And that's considerable damage. So what that means is that there's going to be damage to like, if you're outside, you need to get inside. And that means that there's going to be hail and the tornado is coming right towards you. And that means that the wind, it's strong enough to like take a tree off like out of the roots and just to ruin anything like a house. An EF3, that's 158 to 206 miles an hour. So that's severe damage. So with that, that means this tornado is gonna ruin like maybe half a town, like it did to Bakersfield and to like like any town. So an EF4 to an EF5. Now those types of tornadoes, you can ruin anything, like it did in Joplin. So with Joplin, there was an EF5 with 300 plus miles an hour winds. Now that turned that city upside down. With that, in 2011, a hospital was just flipped upside down to its side. And then the whole city was just torn apart. It was devastating. The schools, they had to have school, and like a church and any buildings that was not taken from this tornado. So on this picture, I am showing what a squall line is. And a squall line is a cloud that is rain-filled, but that does not mean it's just rain that's coming out of this cloud. This is like, with this, there's a picture with like the cloud covering, that's the gray part. And with like the different pictures, that is the amount of like the rain that's from light to heavy. But there's hail also involved, that's the dark red. So with these right here, that's a classic squall line, and then embedded multi-cell. So that means there's different cells in the squall line that can cause a tornado inside. So with the structures, that also means anything can happen. So the making, I emailed a teacher in the 6th grade. Her name was Mrs. Welch, and I emailed her just to ask if I could use her to be the presentation I could give. And she said yes, so I started to pick the day. And the day was it was January 17th. It was a couple weeks after we came back, and I picked 2 p.m. on a Maroon Day so I could have enough time to make sure everything was good. And then my class period, that was 2 p.m. And I told her the subject. My subject was tornadoes. I was going to tell them how they would form and how to take shelter and the rules of like when you hear a tornado siren. And then I started my slides. In the product, I'm showing that I am telling who I am, and I'm a senior in high school. And on the other picture is showing them the storm and how the tornado would be forming. So a couple of days before, I checked my slides, making sure everything was good, everything's perfect, and there was no mistakes on the slides. And then I made sure with my mom, like my slides were good and that everything was perfect. And I got comfortable because I didn't want to be nervous in front of the crowd that I had in the class, because I didn't want to make any mistakes, or I try not to make any mistakes. My challenges was talking in front of people. That was my biggest challenge because I'm not the best at talking in front of people. And then that memorizing is not my strong suit, but I know I've gotten better at it. That was one of my biggest challenges also. And tuning out distractions, that's not my strong suit either, but I know I've gotten much better. In my fun times is doing the experiment with the kids. I did with the jar, and I put some water with like soap, glitter, and like showing there's enough instability in the jar. And like we did a little water tornado thing. It lasted like 5 to 10 seconds. And just being there with the kids, because I just felt happy being there with them and teaching them everything with a tornado. You know, everything will be okay. In the storm damages I'm showing right here is the storm damage from Bakersfield. That's the EF3, and then and this one's also from Bakersfield, and this one is from Poplar Bluff, and that was from an EF2. And I researched the Poplar Bluff tornado and the Bakersfield tornado. They are both an EF2, or Poplar Bluff is an EF2 and an EF3. So overall, by talking about tornadoes, I just wanted to talk about the supercell part, how the tornadoes be forming, and how you're supposed to take shelter when you hear a tornado siren, and that how it does not matter the width, the strength, or the how big it is. Do my judges have any questions?
If you've looked at the weather today, and I'm sure you have,
Yes.
is there a similar thing like you showed of the cell and the moist air and the heat and the cold front?
Yeah.
Are we going to expect something like that? Or are we just going to have rain and hail?
Well, with that, Missouri, it has its very own weather pattern. We never know what we're going to get.
That's true.
So basically, if we get anything, it probably would just be like very heavy rain or just very strong winds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So how long have you been interested in tornadoes?
I've been interested in tornadoes like my whole life, like since I was like 2 or 3 years old. Like I started watching like Ron Hurst on KY3, and I've been very interested in everything. So I want to do this for my project.
I don't think I've ever seen anything about tornadoes.
This is really cool. You did a really good
Very
job.
nice.
Thank you.
You think you may want to be a meteorologist one of these days?
I've thought about it, but I've been thinking all of the hard stuff. I'm not trying to get in the way of that, but I'm still going back and forth.
I know that'd be a lot safer than being a storm chaser.
Yes.
So you
Hello.
definitely, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. You finish.
There were storm chasers at Joplin.
Mhm.
They were coming up out of Oklahoma, and they said the tornado was rain wrapped,
Mhm.
and they couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And it was raining so hard they had to pull over, and they said if they hadn't pulled over, they would have been in Joplin right in front of it
Oh, wow. I didn't.
because they couldn't see it.
That's awful. That's actually really scary. I hope everyone's all right.
Well, I was just gonna make a comment that, you said speaking in public or, wasn't your thing, but you overcome that very, very well tonight, young lady.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yay!
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, try to steal stuff. Goodness. You get it working and then you take off.
I'm gonna sit right here and do it. You too.
I will come with you next time, I promise. Did you get our next one pulled up?
Yeah.
Come on, we have 10 minutes. True. What about? No. No, he said, no, wait a minute. No, he said, okay, yes, it's this one. I was talking to him. Yes. I see, yeah. I'm trying, yeah. No, I don't know. Okay, yeah.
Oh, I found it. Okay. I just went backwards. The old deja vu here. Back in your old, it looks a little different. That's the Chicago Anchors. It really is.
Marty, one of these days you'll have to come and see the stuff we've done to the house.
Oh my goodness, every time I drive by, I get
I
it.
like extend the front porch.
Are you really?
Let's see how
The
it
whole thing,
Yeah.
is those pine needles, I would chop all those pine trees.
We'll
down.
see how it shows up.
All we get is pine needles, pine needles.
I've got my,
Okay.
You know, the back drain, which always had to keep open. I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Every day I do check.
I house
Actually,
needed somebody like you.
I should have done that.
the basement actually flooded because we got no leaves down in there.
Yeah, see, I remember standing in there holding bags, and water would drain.
I even had plumbing down.
Yeah.
I had like the clay pipes taken out and they put in the PVC, and I thought, hey, it's fixed. It's like, I was like, can we do something to just not have to worry about this anymore? Finally got rid of it. I didn't like the tile in the dining room and kitchen. I'm like, can we change that up? I told him I'm never moving again. I'll just make it the way we want it.
Absolutely.
One of the bedrooms, spare bedrooms
He goes,
connected to the
I don't know
master
anything,
bedroom.
but I.
Bathroom, master bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Took the closet out and made part of the bedroom, walk-in closet, part of the bathroom.
Oh, perfect.
On the bedrooms.
Never usually, I haven't got it done yet, but we'll make a small walk-in closet for me.
Oh, yeah.
Go back.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I told her, I said, I enjoy doing this stuff, it's just not as fast as it used to be.
Well, go with your own speed, right? Your own speed.
This is what we.
So like that?
Like, put the poster where you're at right now. Like that. Yeah. There you go. Maybe a little touch more. You good? Six? Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah, not worth a little bit.
we cut that off and made an out of that.
Yeah. Listen, if I had any kind of skill, that's a great place to do all that.
This is a moose game.
Like she said, we want,
Especially if
we
you
don't
put
plan
the
on
skill
moving.
sets to it.
So the kids, they said, our name on it, we're not here, y'all provide it. Y'all throw your names up, you figure it out.
that's why people shouldn't just jump in the building and home. They need to sit down and really think about what they really want.
It doesn't take long to start thinking, I wish we would have run out of
I love it.
Did they build that? No.
They didn't build it, but they bought it. Couldn't have been that. Barely. I mean, that was in the 80s. Probably.
I would make the dining room kitchen bigger.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We talked about Sunday, maybe opening the back deck and.
You don't sit on the back.
We were out there talking about this evening. I looked at
Yeah, you should be fine.
Did you play with that to make sure you knew how to use it? There you go.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You guys ready?
Are my judges ready? Have you ever wondered why summer and winter became really warmer than usual? And the answer for that is deforestation. National Environment Agency collected information from 48 different states for 100 years, and this data states that average temperature in America increased by 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So my name is Daniel Logvin, and today I will explain the causes of deforestation and why we should stop doing that. So we're gonna go back to history and look for the old causes of deforestation. People have been cutting down trees for a long time. And first of all, it was as a fuel to cook food, as a material to build houses or provide tools and different goods for people. And also, people were cutting down trees to make more land, to grow plants, and to feed their livestock. And the last reason was they were afraid of forest, because in a forest you can meet a lot of dangerous animals such as bears, wolves, and whatnot. And with our technologies that increasing really rapidly, it's really easy to cut down trees. And one person with the proper equipment can cut up to 100 trees a day, even more than 100. And today, the major cause of deforestation is urbanization. Our population is increasing really rapidly, and it means that we need more houses, we need more roads, and more infrastructure for people. Economics. Many countries deforest their land to provide jobs for people, to help their economy, and just to make living for some people. As I said, our population increasing really rapidly, and it means that we need even more food that we need now. And it leads to deforestation of certain areas to provide more farmlands for livestock and for crops. And the last cause of deforestation is natural disasters, such as tornadoes and wildfires. They can damage forests pretty bad. So, but why we should keep trees? Why they're good for us? And any living creature on our planet need oxygen to survive. And trees are a great source of oxygen. They can absorb carbon dioxide from the air, and they release the oxygen that we really need to survive. And when we cut down a tree, it releases the carbon dioxide that harms our planet. And also, to survive, we need water. And trees are an excellent source of water. With their roots, they're able to pump the water from underground, and this water they evaporate through their leaves. And through the process of evaporation, they're able to cool down the air around them by about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And with all of these facts, trees are great elements in water cycling system, and without those, we wouldn't have as much rain as we do right now. So it's really important for us to save our planet green. So here you can see flying rivers. And what is that? It's a water jet that contains a lot of water vapor. And these rivers can travel for long distances. They can travel between continents. And some group of scientists, they wanted to learn more about it. So they hired a pilot to fly above the Amazon forest and collect data from those jets. So the pilot flew above the Amazon forest for about 8 days, and he collected enough data to say that those water rivers contain enough water for 20 million people for about 4 months. So it's a lot of water. And these rivers, they can go really far. And without trees, we wouldn't have as much rain as we have now, and it would lead to starting of desertification of some regions of our planet. Even though it's almost impossible to avoid cutting down trees, it's almost impossible to avoid cutting down trees, but we have to do it responsibly, and we cannot allow wasting any wood. So for my project, I decided to make a coffee table using the low-grade wood that no one would ever buy, and I wanted to make something great with this wood. So carpentry is a great skill. You can do a lot of great things with carpentry. You can build furniture, you can build some decorations, and just good things. And I also wanted to challenge myself. I've never done carpentry before, so I was interested if I can do this, so I wanted to challenge myself. And I started with inspiration. I saw a post of a wonderful table made with wood, and I had a thought that I want to recreate it. So after that, I started my research about coffee tables, and the recommended measurements for a coffee table is height about 16 inches and wide about 22 inches. And after I had enough information, I could start making my blueprint, and for that I decided to create a 3D model. I use a 3D software called Blender to create my 3D model, and it was easy to adjust measurements for this table, so I was changing my blueprints along the way. So as I said, I got lumber from Wagner, and it was the worst lumber I could ever get. So it took me a while to make it look nice. I had to use Planner, and I ran it through Planner about 5 to 6 times from each side. And after I used Planner, I had to use table saw so I can make the sides smooth. And after I was done with lumber, I was able to start gluing the tops. And my table is 22 inches wide, so I couldn't run it through Planner, the whole top. So we had to glue it halves and then glue the halves together. And after I was done with tops, I was ready to start assembling the table. And it didn't take me long to assemble the table after the tops. It took me about maybe 2 to 3 hours to assemble the whole table. And after the assembling the table, I was ready to start painting. I decided to stain the top black and paint the sides white. So along the way, I had so many troubles with this project. I had the bad lumber that I just hated. Yeah. And also I had to learn a lot of new tools such as Planner, table saw, a polisher, and just a lot of tools. And bad lumber, it was also a great challenge. I think if I would have a better lumber, my project would take me twice less time to make it. And also painting, it was a challenge for me because I had some troubles with painting. And after staining the tops, I had to tape it around the edges so I can start painting, but the tape wouldn't stick to it. So I had to put a clear coat for that. So with all of this said, it's impossible to avoid deforestation. But if we do deforest such certain areas, we have to plant new trees and be more responsible for that. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
You talked about the bad lumber a lot, so what, what's the story behind, why did you get that kind of lumber? Was it a price thing that you just didn't want to spend more money, or what caused you to get such bad lumber?
Well, it was not a price. It was more of, the bad lumber, no one's buy it. So they're gonna waste this wood and the tree just died for nothing. We just cannot waste the wood.
You were gonna use it.
So what are you gonna do with your coffee tape?
I'm probably gonna put this in my apartment and drink coffee there sometimes.
You talked about the Amazon experiment.
Yeah.
And going through, and where did you learn about that?
So I had some papers that I put. I mean, they're in my research.
Is it in your paper? I can look. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in my paper.
Okay. I'm just curious where you found that.
I think it should be one of those Pierce Fred, Rivers in the Sky.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know when I was young, I worked around sawmills and logging and those things. And in the, I guess probably 80s, maybe in the 90s, some of the loggers around there started just cutting everything they could cut. And it just grew up in a brush thicket when they got done. Because they said, one man told my dad, he said, had a sawmill, he said he would cut anything that would make a 2x4. And I thought, a tree that small, you cut a 2x4 out of it, it's gonna be warped and twisted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if they will go through and leave some, good sized stuff that's really not big enough to, to make good lumber,
Mm-hmm.
in a few years, someone else can come along and log it again. And you can keep recycling like that. That's how our conservation does it. And the Forest Service does it. They go through and mark what they can cut and and that's all they're really allowed to cut, so that there will be another growth, and in several years, or someone can log it again. And it keeps the forest and all still growing and going. I think you got a good idea there.
Yep.
Are you gonna go into forestry?
Not to forestry, maybe to carpentry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I really like the process of making this table.
It's amazing what you can do with rough lumber.
Yeah.
To come up with something good.
Thank you.
I worked at Bruce Hardwood at West Plains. It's not Bruce anymore, but a flooring mill. And they didn't really use the best lumber, but you couldn't tell it when you got done. If there was little bug holes, things like that, they would putty it, and then when it was sanded and put the finish on it, you didn't see any of it.
Well, I had to use a lot of wood filler too to make it plain.
Done a good job.
Thank you. Almost forgot this one.
Good work there.
What time is it?
If you want to bring your stuff in, you should.
Break it again?
Mic on. Yeah. So we can hear you. Go. You want to try that? Make sure you understand how it works. There you go. Yes, ma'am. That way it doesn't block out what we see on the camera.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Are my judges ready? Now, this kid looks like your normal everyday kid. He loves playing baseball and he loves roughhousing with his brothers. But what if I told you that when he grew up, he became the first man on the walk on the moon? This is a picture of Neil Armstrong. On September 11th, 1969, he went on Apollo 11, landing on the moon and making history. Hello, my name is William Ely. I'm going to be telling you the difference between rockets and missiles. For one, they use a different fuel. They use gasoline and candle wax. Meanwhile, missiles, they use propane and napalm. They also use GPS systems so that way they can hit their targets better. Meanwhile, rockets don't do that. They have to only go up into space. Meanwhile, no missile in history has ever done that. Of course, rockets versus missiles. Oh wait, I want the history of rockets. First rockets were fireworks by the ancient Chinese in order to protect themselves from the Normans. This is why they built the Great Wall of China.
Once missiles stepped in was way later on during World War One and during World War II, with powder rockets, the V1, the V2, and the V3 projects. And of course, rockets today and the future. With You've already heard about colonization, the space hotel, or a glass shield all around planet Earth. They all sound like sci-fi, don't they? But I believe that if children like me had put more interest into rocket science and into the future of humanity, that it is no longer going to be sci-fi and more of an actual future. Of course, I have to list out some important rockets throughout history, such as Apollo. There has been over 17 rockets that have went into space and have landed on the moon, as well as the Mars rover. In 2011, it was the first rocket to ever land on Mars. 5 years later, it got stuck in a trench. Unfortunately, there is no way to retrieve it without spending a lot of resources, a lot of money, and a lot of time. And of course, the Challenger. In 1984, a teacher went up into space, but unfortunately, in midair, she exploded. Scientists have studied this rocket in order to understand why this incident happened, and therefore, they want to make sure that something like this can never happen again. And of course, some important missile history. Like I mentioned earlier, the V1, the V2, and the V3 were all very important rockets that helped throughout the space race, and we still research them to this day in order to help with rocket research and for the future of humanity, as well as many other things. And of course, in 1946, the V2 rocket was the rocket that first went into space and took the very first picture of Earth, as well as the transformation in technology. From World War II to the Cold War, there was a massive transformation of technology from missiles to rockets in order to help propel the space race in order to land on the moon. And this is what starts the entire controversy between what is the difference between a rocket and a missile. But today, since there's not as many major wars going on, we don't have to use as many missiles anymore. Therefore, all the missile technology is now actually being reused as rocket technology, so that way we can help our future and help more developments. Now, you might be wondering what I did. Well, I built a rocket. I built a bottle rocket. I had to get a bunch of resources. I had to get cardboard. I had to get glue. I had to get a bottle. And basically what I did, I just got a Coke bottle, ripped the label off, put some water in there, pressurized it, and let it launch. I did this a repetitive amount of times because I used, cheap resources. And every single time I would use it, it would either destroy itself or I would have to rebuild it. As well, I had to talk to the right people. Not many people know about this, but bottle rocketing is a natural habit that people have. It's just like drone flying, except it's not as common as you think it is. And people are going to ask me, "Hey, William, how come you're building a rocket?" I'm like, "Well, it's because something the school's forced me to do. So, can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me how to use the right calculations and the right projections for my rocket?" As well as testing and building it. I've tested and built it multiple times, probably over 10 to 20 times in total, just to see if I was launching it in the right area, seeing if I was using the right amount of water, seeing if I was even using the right bottle. And of course, I had to fly the rocket. I flew the rocket north, south, east, and west, just to see if one area would be better than the other. Would wind affect it? Would weather affect it? Would the trees affect it? And there were so many things that I had to calculate in order for my rocket to work. And the number one thing I was done with my rocket, I was super relieved. And I want to tell other children who are into rockets and who want to follow in the steps of my projection, don't give up. That is the number one thing I want to tell people, is just don't give up. Because whenever I was done doing my rocket, it broke so many times, and it was super frustrating. But no matter how many times that I broke it, I fixed it, and eventually I got the result that I wanted. And of course, it helped me change in so many ways. If you are wanting to do a project like this, you're going to have to talk to a lot of people, because you're not going to be able to do something like this completely by yourself. It's impossible. And you have to talk to people who know what they're doing. You have to talk to people who know how to build the thing. You have to talk to people who know when to do it, how to do it, and most importantly, to have fun with it. Really, just have fun with it. And so many other benefits as well. Now, my number one challenge was building and rebuilding the rocket. It was super frustrating. And of course, I had to travel a lot in order to get all these resources, as well as communication. And you might be wondering what inspired me. I loved rockets as a child, and my dad loved rockets as a child, and his father loved rockets as a child. And because of that more generational love and that kids can be inspired by rockets, more people can be like Neil Armstrong. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
How do you use gummy bears for rocket?
You reuse the elements and the chemicals in them, and by doing that, you can use them as a fuel. For example, there's many other things that you can transform into using the right elements. For example, you can turn a plastic glove into hot sauce. I'm serious. Like if you could, yeah. Is there any other questions?
Are you gonna do something like this in the future?
When I grow up, I think I'm going to become a author and historian, and I might work at a museum where they might show rockets around, and not everyone's going to know how a rocket works or the history of rockets, and I'm going to explain to them just like how I explained to you. But otherwise, I don't think I'm going to go and become this big old NASA scientist or anything like that, but I do love inspiring younger generations. So that way they can go into rocketry and give them job opportunities and as well as prosperity for not only them, but for the future of humanity.
I have a granddaughter that is very interested in, the space shots and all that. And she's taught school for a few years now. But next year, she's not going to teach school. She's going to work in Weatherford, Oklahoma, in a museum. I can't remember what the name of it is, but anyway, it's about NASA and
That's amazing.
she became interested in that, working there while she was in college.
You don't have any interest in like becoming a great rocket builder?
No, I love the history of rockets and I love, going into detail about them. I could talk for hours and hours about history if I wanted to. You can ask my mother about that. And yeah, I love telling people like, hey, one day if you tried hard enough and you studied hard enough, that maybe one day you could be in space. You could be the first person to walk on Mars or even something more extraordinary in our future. And that's what I love to do. I love telling people like, hey, this is our future. This is a job that's going to pay you good money. And this is what I believe is going to be our next huge step.
There's a place at a business in Neosho called Teledyne. But when it first started out, it was Rocketdyne.
Mm-hmm.
And they told us in '81 when I was going to school there that I think they build the rockets for the space up until, I think they said through the monkey shots or up to the monkey shot. They said they got so big that they couldn't, ship them on trucks and stuff then. And so they had to start being built closer to water so they could do them on
That's interesting.
ships or barges.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thought. I thought of maybe when I grow up that I could start my own center as well, like fundraising or something else like that, you know, like where I can tell kids about the more rockets. Like I could go from school to school to school, telling them like, hey, here's some interesting rocket facts, you know? Like, for example, did you know that gummy bears were used as rocket fuel and they can be used as rocket fuel? You can build your very own rocket using a bottle or even gummy bears. You can essentially build your own rocket at your very own house, and it can cost you less than $10. It's extremely cheap, it's extremely easy to do, and especially with the right people and the right help, you can probably get it done within less than a week.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw. He really does like this. Were you able to see that just fine? Would you like me to turn it at all? It don't matter. I think it's good. Is this all my judges?
We're not gonna read.
You got the shoes?
Oh, I said those.
I
I don't want them in here. I think they're on that table.
have another question.
Oh, yeah, I was blocking
These
out.
are there for.
Right down here, but
A cookie and cream bun. These are the.
Or if I put this on.
All right, go ahead, man.
I'm gonna have you, we're gonna stand behind here. I'm gonna move this over to your other side.
All right.
That way you're a little closer to the TV if you want to point anything out. Does that
All
work
right.
for you?
Yes, ma'am. You got one of these, correct? Are you a
No.
judge?
I am not a judge.
Do you want one?
Sure. Thank you. Here's your pepper. You wanna try it so you know how it works?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Can I get you anything else?
No, ma'am.
You good to go?
Mm-hmm.
We've got about, very good. Are we supposed to start at 5?
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
you've got about 8 minutes, so if you're.
Alrighty.
You got
Do
a
I-
few minutes.
Do I have enough time to wait? You said 8 minutes? May I go get a drink of water real quick? Thank you.
I'm gonna hold on to your mic though.
All right.
Just for a second. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be terrible. I don't have any batteries.
You know his story.
Yes, I do. I followed
40 days in 4 hospitals. Yep, he's a miracle, for sure. Good medical care, the best there is. Many times we didn't think he would make it to today.
And breathers.
I think Greg's
We already got, he did great. We're saying that there. Sorry. Yeah. All the way from.
Do you need some? Do you need some?
What do you want? Does this go like right here? Yeah, no, this close. You better not fail me, Miss Bradford. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying, these next 2 Mondays are gonna be terrible if you fail me. But they will be some rough Mondays. Either way.
Where does this grade count?
Speech.
Requirement, it's just requirement.
It's both. But I gotta get Braxton going at least one more time in there. At least one more time. No, I gotta get him going and then make you mad with it. Am I good once you sit down, man? Once you sit down, am I good?
another minute.
Okay. Okay. Are my judges ready? My presentation is about welding, careers, and safety. My name is Greg Riley, and this is something that I have been passionate about for about the last 3 years. Whenever I think of welding, the very first thing that comes to mind is pipeline. But it's probably one of the more popular career lines to go down. And you'll be doing pipeline all over the country, anywhere from Texas to Minnesota, Montana, anywhere around there for oil fields, anything that's for gas. Industrial shutdowns, same thing, all over the country. Your job is to maintain and keep the factory in running order. They'll shut down a factory from anywhere from a couple days to a couple months. Navy ship maintenance, you can be doing this job from anywhere in our country to all over the world. You could be on the coast of California or the coast of Florida, Japan, the Middle East, anywhere that the US military has Navy ships. At home, farmers use welding a lot around the farm. Fence, farmers use it a lot for fence. They use it a lot on their vehicles, tractors, or anything that needs to be welded. Vehicles, you can weld the frame together. Transmissions actually require some TIG welding to be done, to be put together and be functionable. Then Tinkerets, you can weld just about anything together, make almost anything with it. Pros to working on the road. Pay, in my opinion, is the biggest pro. When you're working for a company and you're using someone else's equipment, you'll be making anywhere from about $60,000 or more, depending how long you've been doing it and how good you are at it. But if you have your own equipment, you're easily looking over 6 figures. And then my brothers, they don't weld, but they've worked all over the country for the last several years, and they have got to travel the country and see so many different, unique and different experiences while being out on the road, something that I haven't got to see in our little town of Willow Springs. They have met all sorts of people, and I hope to do the same eventually. But working on the road with the crew you're on, you'll be meeting people that could be from Texas, Maryland, anywhere. And you'll get to experience how different people can be depending where they grew up, their different cultures, and different beliefs. Safety gear. Cotton clothing is very important to wear because cotton doesn't catch on fire as easy compared to polyester. Polyester catches on fire very easily, and whenever it catches on fire, it melts like plastic. So whenever it catches on fire and melts, it sticks to your skin. And sometimes you have to have that part of your skin surgically removed. And welding gloves are important so you don't burn your hands. Safety glasses are very important to wear, especially when you're grinding or anywhere in a shop, because if you get metal in your eyes and you can't wash it out, you have to go get that surgically removed also. And I think we can all agree that our eyes are very important. It's something that we all probably take for granted a little bit. A welding helmet is also very important because of the rays that come off when you're welding. The rays are actually brighter up close than what the sun is. Welding without a welding helmet is like staring at the sun for hours. A respirator inside of a shop, even outside, is kind of important, but especially in a shop, it is very important because the gases that are in the air can cause permanent lung issues such as cancer or any other lung diseases with the gases. Health risks. Gases, as I just spoke of, they cause all sorts of health issues. Projectiles, pretty much same thing with grinding. It's a risk to your eyes and potentially a risk to your body if a piece of metal decides to go flying at you. Burns are the most common in my opinion, because sometimes if you're not paying attention, you can catch on fire and you'll get burned a little. In most cases, it's not very severe, but I have heard and seen videos of some very severe cases, and it's not pretty. Gas tanks, gas tanks can be very dangerous because if you don't properly check them and make sure they're not leaking, it can cause an explosion. Or if the tank falls over and decides to explode, it shoots in whatever direction at hundreds of miles per hour, and it can go through several concrete walls, so just imagine what it could do to you. My challenges while I was doing my project was I had some health complications. I took a pretty long nap, honestly, about 28 days. I spent 40 days in the hospital, 20-something on life support, all that fun stuff. So because of my health complications, I had time restraints, which about 40 days less than what everybody else had. And because of my now health issues, originally my product, I was going to weld together a couple fire pits. But because of my health issues, I'm not really supposed to weld anymore. So, as the pamphlet I passed out earlier is what my project is. And pretty much everything that is on my slides is also on this pamphlet, just in different wording. Do my judges have any questions?
So you said because of your health you can't weld now. Is that something that's long term or is that just right now?
Long term.
Did you have a backup career?
I'm going to get on the road with my brothers building cell phone towers.
Has it, let me think about how to say this. Give me a second. Anybody else? Is welding something that prior to your health issues that you had been very considering as a career? Is that something you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was pretty in between either going out on the road and welding or going out on the road with my brothers, because one way, welding, I make just a little bit more money, and the other way I get to work all over the country with my family.
You learn just as much either way.
Yeah.
And your health now,
It's better.
it's better?
Yeah. I've been out for about 2-ish months, a little over 2 months.
Well, you look good. Just saying,
Yeah.
what you've been through, you do.
Any other questions? Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
What was my time? You know what? That's better than what I thought it was. That felt about like 4 minutes.
You did a great job. Proud of you.
Am I good to go?
You're good.
All right. Have a great day, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
My brain really froze up there for a second.
Oh, dear. I left the purse somewhere. Anybody see my purse? Yes, I did.
No, I got one more and then I gotta run.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Here's the way I see it, you're an adult, you can manage on your own.
You can go see the doctor. producing wheat bread, and they may possible complications. Doing great. My advisory box.
I can loan you a few. I can loan you a few.
Nobody can top
No,
that, the crew that I've had them since freshman.
growing up with you and your family.
I can imagine.
Yep, you and Emma grew up together, more or less. Two totally different kids.
They are. They're both awesome in their own way.
Kitchen with my wife and daughter.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, Mr. Sherper around.
So what's wrong with them? What was wrong with Eli? Yeah, great. Oh, I remember now. I remember that being. And he just, I remember what following that on Facebook.
Go get set up. Ready to watch you.
Can't stay here.
This is what you forgot in the classroom?
Mm-hmm.
So you just pick it up in your backpack.
Mm-hmm. What time is it?
We still have 5 minutes. So you can go get a drink of water, you can go outside and relax, and stand here. Or you can just,
No. Are you?
I don't have to respond.
I'm not nervous. Do I look nervous? I'm not.
Did you forget where I told you your clothes would be?
Mm-hmm.
You had 3 people calling.
Yeah, I forgot.
Did you remember after they told you?
Yeah, no.
No. So when you're done, you need to help me get those flowers back.
Okay. You messed up bolt.
Hmm? What you think of?
Okay. Hey, wait to see 2 Broncos fans here.
Hey, this is the quick sections room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My brothers are a Broncos fan.
Yes, we're good people. That's right.
At least they don't cheat.
That's right.
Good. Good times. But at least you know which NBA team he likes. Mm-hmm. Well, I like the Bulls.
Got that, I even hid that behind the desk for you.
Well, hey, at least I still got it in my room. I got Bulls flag in my room too.
There you go.
Did you read the thing?
I did. You did a good job with it.
Yeah. hmm? All right, judge is ready. Okay. Hi, Michael Williams. Huh. Hi, I'm Michael, and this is my Michael Williams talk show. And today we're going to talk about tulips. Landscape by Michael Williams Jr. The problem, the roof is so large it can cause drain water to the sewers and also lead it to the streets. And with the guttering system, it causes water to lead out to the streets. The problem, the road will not be able to drain water properly. It can cause dangerous and driving like hydroplaning, potential damage to the pavement edge. The solution, the screw added the pipes to the gutter and shed to the streets away from the school. To help solve this problem, I put the bed of tulips and make the school more beautiful. How to grow tulips? Well, you need well-drained soil, tulip bulbs, water, and sunlight. And the tulips bloom in every spring. This is the tectonic flower bulbs right here, and basal stem and the roots, and the scale right here. Don't eat the tulips, they are poisonous. Danger, all parts of the plants are poisonous and toxic. And tulip naturally defends themselves, animals and other creatures from eating it. Mr. Kevin and I plowed the weeds because the weeds can kill the plants and also make the plants unhealthy. The weed can kill the plants. The weeds compete with the tulips like water, nutrition, and sunlight. It could potentially harm the plant. How to treat the tulip? Ensure good drainage, provide good sunlight, water moderately, fertilize in the fall, allow foliage to die back in the fall, die back naturally after flowering and things. So the tulip bloom every year if you take good care of them. In the fall, this one you put in the winter because it's going to sleep because it's too cold. In this one is blooming. Then right here is die back and put my bulbs in. Why do tulips bloom in the spring? A period of cold temperature to trigger the blooming progress. These are the tulips when they're growing. How many tulip plants I planted? I planted around 170. How many colors do tulips have? Particularly every shade except for two blue, like red, white, maroon, pink, every shade of purple, green, multicolor, and patterns. How to feed the tulip? Apply slow release fertilizer. Use compost and bone meal. What I use shovel, hoe, pickaxe, rake, and leaf blower. This is me using a hoe. type of soil I use potting soil. Me also cutting him, put in the dirt, planting tulips, working with others. This is my first time working with Ozzy Cuddy him. It was easy to do it as a team because Ozzy Cuddy we did it as a team though. Mr. Top also helped one day was at the school, then he went on an FFA trip. Challenges. I hope I get this done in October, but people keep changing their minds. And Officer KDM, yeah, and Mr. Talbot's schedule keep changing, and it's real hard to decide what to talk about on my presentation. This is me showing you guys the tulip bulbs. The dirt Officer KDM Mr. Talbot put in, and I help spread it out. I use a leaf blower to clean up the sidewalk. Me finishing the project. Officer cut him and took a picture of me when I'm done, and I put my thumbs up. This is before and after, because you can see the difference. There's water now, there's dirt and flowers blooming too. Me watering the tulips and using the garden hose to do it. Mr. Kevin also make a good device to get rid of that thing and to make it to water everything out so it can grow. Me obviously cutting him. People help me. Officer cutting him, Mr. Talbot, Miss Jackson B, and Miss Boot, and Mr. Kevin. Any questions?
These tulips you have grown?
No, these were Miss Jackson and Miss Boot brought in. Anything else?
What was your favorite part of the project?
To get it done.
What did you learn?
Digging. And also they are poisonous too.
Have you assigned someone to take care of those plants after you graduate?
No, not yet.
Pick somebody good that will water them for you.
Mr. Walden.
Okay. We can volunteer him.
Still pick Mr. Walden.
Do you want to plant any more flower beds?
Nah.
No. They're so pretty though.
You
You did a good job.
Hey, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
So if you want to go change clothes, then come back.
Okay.
Okay. You can push that outside.
I'm done.
It's hard, but we have to put that back.
Yeah.
Good, buddy.
I'm out of here. I think you took the longest time. So, but you did a really good job. I just gonna leave everything I brought. And whatever.
Yeah, I'll just stick it all in the box. They had some, had red Well, thank you. Well, thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
You too. Have a good night. Enjoy those babies.
Dating it. You fine with that? You're gonna tell me to go away?
Huh? Yeah, I had to use my kindergarten teacher voice. Your Bruce and a picture.
You okay with me doing it? Okay.
Are my judges ready? Perfect. Art for art's sake, a phrase most commonly credited to the French philosopher Victor Cousin, and the four words that most artists have heard more times than their hands have picked up a paintbrush. Art for art's sake is a phrase circled around the idea that art should be created solely for aesthetic purposes and should not be viewed when taken into account any ties to worldly ideals such as politics, religion, morality, or identity. Now, in the present, this phrase is not used to separate art from worldly ideals as it was in the past, but as words of discouragement. With a large proportion of society deeming art as an impractical career due to things such as rising AI use and the common belief that artist jobs as well as pay are rapidly disappearing, a job in this career is heavily discouraged. They say leave art for art's sake, not for stability, not for earnings, purely for a creative outlet. Hi, my name is Caden Stara, and I believe that upcoming creators should not be discouraged from pursuing the visual arts field on the basis of rising AI implementation and the belief that art is no longer practical and therefore not needed. I believe in the possibility of art for life's sake. Now, before I get into my research, I'd like to share my motivations behind this topic. I've been creating art since as long as I can remember and have been using art as an emotional and creative outlet my entire life. I've heavily incorporated these skills into my high school career, and I knew immediately for this reason that I wanted to center my senior project around this passion. Now, while this heavily filtered into my decision to research this topic, this was not the only reason. I chose this topic for more personal reasons. I'd like to introduce my judges to three very dear friends of mine. This is Chloe Fisher, a first-year college student at UMKC who's studying both political history and advanced journalism. This is Tristan Turbe, a sophomore in high school and the head illustrator for the Wingspan magazine. And this is Emma Boyle, a childhood friend and recent high school graduate who hopes to pursue counseling and therapy in college. Now, you may be wondering what these three widely different people have in common and what this has to do with my presentation. Well, I'll let you in on a little-known secret of theirs. All three of these students grew up dreaming of being artists, and I had the displeasure of watching these dreams be crushed by staff and peers alike telling them that they had no future in a career in art. I watched their drive and their passion be thrown down the drain, and only Tristan was able to rekindle his love for the subject. I watched as two of these brilliant minds had their talent thrown away by the untrue claims of those around them. But this problem is not only secluded to my small friend group. Now, according to a study by the Norwin High School journalism class, 66.7% of art students at Norwin High School felt that staff didn't take their choice to pursue the arts after high school seriously. Now, this isn't just a handful of kids, but this is over half the number of art students. Now, coming from her first-hand experience, seeing how this lack of support from staff can impact student artists, I knew that this was a topic that needed spoken on before more students were discouraged like my friends. Now, this pure discouragement lies in three main claims. Art, much like acting and music, is deemed an impractical career. Now, while these artists aren't usually pushed entirely away from the art field, they are heavily encouraged to use it as nothing more than a creative outlet. They are pushed towards careers deemed more practical, such as STEM, healthcare, and law. Now, while these precautions are valid, taking into account the opposing argument, what society does not take into consideration is the harmful impacts that these decisions can have on artists when they are told that something they have been dreaming of and pursuing their entire lives cannot be reached. Filtering heavily into this is the common misconception that artist jobs, along with pay, are rapidly decreasing. Now, while it is true that some artists without higher education in some situations can make the same amount of money as artists with higher education, the common belief that these jobs are disappearing completely is untrue. This is a stereotype, and this stereotype is fueled by AI implementation. AI generators are able to create a sought-after visual in mere seconds with just a brief description and the click of a button. These images hold most of the same professionalism and quality as human-made art, and at first glance, you are almost unable to tell them apart. Now, this raises the question in the minds of many. If these images can be created with built-in skill, little time, and no supplies needed, then are artists really needed? The answer to this question is an absolute yes. Let me debunk some things about AI for you. First and foremost, AI relies heavily on human-made art. Now, while it is true that these machines generate the images, they do not create them themselves. When these machines are told to generate an image, they search online databases for art styles and art pieces already created. They then find similar art pieces to the text prompt described and mash them together and refine them into an image. This leaves for a lack of originality along with creativity. Alongside this, AI, artificial intelligence, has the inability to think for itself. Now, a heavy foundation in art is being able to compromise. Artists need to be able to change perspective and portions often. Artificial intelligence does not have the capacity to do these things for itself. If you tell these machines to change the perspective of an image, they can search online databases for images with similar perspectives, but they themselves cannot manually do so. This leaves for a lack of compromise, which is something that is very important in the art career. But the biggest thing that separates AI art from human-made art is the inability of these machines to incorporate the biggest pillars of art. Art is centered heavily around metaphorical views and the emotional connections created when a piece is viewed. Artificial intelligence does not have the ability to understand these metaphorical views, create emotional connection, and construct abstract concepts. With art being so heavily centered around this and AI having the inability to possess these qualities, it is very apparent that AI cannot completely take over human-made artists. If humans stopped making art or simply never had in the first place, these machines would not have the resources that they need to do the jobs that they can today. Now, with artificial intelligence showing no signs of replacing human-made artists, I believe that a career in this field is still widely attainable. Now, there are a plethora of jobs in this field, ranging from ones with little to no experience to high experience needed. Alongside this, these jobs tie into multiple different interests. Art is not only the Bob Ross stereotype with a paintbrush and an easel. Art is anything that involves creation. You can be a political cartoonist, a film animator, a museum guide, or a website designer. Anything that involves art and a passion for it lies in this career. So I believe that if you have a passion for this subject, you can find a job in this career. Alongside this, art does not only promise enjoyment and fulfillment, but a plethora of benefits. These benefits range from a boost in psychological well-being, which creates a healthy mind and in turn creates a healthy body, to the ability to tie into important societal pillars. Art promises the ability to connect and express culture and the lifestyle of a different group of people, as well as tie into emotional connections and societal experience. Now, taking into account these benefits, I wanted to test them for myself. Now, while I have been an artist for a great portion of my life, I have not actively paid attention to these benefits. In order to do this, I knew that I needed to create an art piece. Now, I wanted to experience firsthand these benefits, but I did not want this to just be any other painting or drawing. I wanted it to be something important to me, which is why I decided to do a comparison piece. The picture on the right is the first ever professional drawing that I completed. It was my first graphite drawing, along with my first large-scale drawing, and my first piece to ever be entered into an art show. I have always held a special fondness for this piece, as it is my firstborn child. So I knew immediately that I wanted to incorporate this into my senior project. Alongside this, I wanted to show my growth over my high school years. I knew that I had to accurately be able to show this through my pictures, so I knew that a lot of planning would come in hand. First, I had to find an image that accurately would compare to my previous image, but would also be different enough to be able to establish the two pieces as their own. I decided on this image on the left as it did these things. Next was expanding the dimensions. As my first piece had been a large-scale drawing, I knew that I also needed to expand this piece to a large-scale drawing. I did this by incorporating basic multiplication and being able to expand the dimensions to be larger. My next step was mapping the image with grid lines. Now, with a drawing this large, you cannot accurately show proportions without doing some type of measurements. This was my way, and I measured 1 by 1 inch squares and drew them on my reference photo, and then marked where each portion of the girl met the lines. Next was the outline. I drew the grid lines on my actual drawing paper and then marked where these proportions met, and then made the outline of the drawing. After this was done, was the meat of the drawing. I went straight into the shading so that I could make it accurately reflect my reference photo. As you can see here, I started from the top and shaded in portions down to the bottom. The original reference photo was 10 by 6 inches, and the finished product was 20 by 12. Now, while working on this art, I had a lot of time to think. I realized that I was hitting heavily on the benefits felt and my personal growth, but I was not diving into upcoming creator discouragement. Now, while I am very passionate about this, I wanted to hit heavily on this, which is why I decided to showcase my art in the senior project showcase. This took a lot of planning. Now, being an artist for as long as I have, my pieces were scattered everywhere. From being on my bedroom walls to my living room to stored in the basement to my relative's house, I had to do my rounds to collect these pieces. Next, I had to create labels. Now, to an untrained eye, It is hard to tell the difference between a charcoal and a graphite drawing, acrylic paint and oil paint. So I knew that I needed to label these pieces with the title along with the medium and the year that it was completed to accurately show my growth. Next was the actual showcase. I needed to talk to my teachers and the people involved with the showcase so that I could know if I needed to buy certain things to be able to display my art. Now, while my art piece turned out exactly how I envisioned it to be, and my art show was extremely rewarding, like in all great projects, I had challenges. First and foremost was my transferring schools. I moved to Willow Springs High School on March 10th, 2025. This was 7 months into the 9-month school year. I was told about senior project on my first block of my very first day. To say that I was completely and utterly overwhelmed is an understatement. Now, while all the other seniors around me had a year to plan and perfect their desired product, I had a mere 5 weeks to write an essay, design a poster, create my slideshow, write out a judge's packet, create the actual art piece, and write and plan a speech when I had no prior public speaking knowledge. Now, everybody around me said that this would be hard to do. All the teachers, or all the staff and the seniors that I came in contact with said they could not imagine being in my place. Now, from the person actually doing it, I can say that it was harder than expected. I was pulling all-nighters often, taking my art home every weekend, and working diligently in every advisory block and lunch period. I had teachers pushing aside assignments in their classes so I could work and in hopes that I could fit everything in before my deadline. Now, it is safe to say that tears were shed, complaints were thrown, and Monster Energy drinks should sponsor me with the amount of drinks that I had to down to stay awake and energized through this project. Now, tying heavily into my challenges was my strive for perfectionism. Being the only girl out of 4 children and striving to be seen as a middle child, I have been an extreme perfectionist my entire life, which made it extremely hard for me to do this project. I knew that if I had a year, like everybody else, to plan and perfect what I wanted to, I could do something truly great and I could have a chance at being a top 5. But with the time limit placed on me, this simply was not possible, and it lowered my morale as well as my motivation greatly. I figured if I can't do this the best as I can, why should I do it at all? Now, another big challenge was the art itself. Now, I'm not only talking about drawing it, but the time limit that I had. Now, I knew that in 5 weeks, it would be hard for me to plan and perfect an entire drawing, but I did not take into account all the other things that I would have stacked on my schedule. This pushed my art to the back burner, and in the end, I was unable to complete it in the time completed. This lowered my drive for this project greatly, because my entire project was centered heavily around this. Now, although I had all of these hardships just pushing me to give up, I was able to turn these things in my favor, and I'm here doing this presentation tonight. I was able to use my transferring schools to motivate me to be just as great as every senior around me, and to show everybody around me watching that I can do anything that I put my mind to. I was able to use my perfectionism to perfect my product as well as I could, and I was able to use these benefits that I gained from my art to fall back on stressful times. Now, I hope that in this showcase, I was able, more importantly, to show that art to everybody around me that art is an important career and it is attainable. But more importantly, I hope that I was able to show some little boy or girl out there the cool big kids art and show them that their passion for coloring in their coloring book can go well beyond what they know. Because I believe that anybody with a dream should not be discouraged from following it, whether this be a nurse or an artist. I believe in the possibility of art for life's sake. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Wow.
Yeah.
Where are you going from here?
Hopefully college. I hope to do it as a hobby more than an actual life path, because I have something that I'm also very passionate about that I hope to pursue, but I definitely will continue doing this in the future.
Good art teacher.
I've definitely thought about it. It was one of my biggest dreams a few years ago and something that I still think about often. So I might pursue that. You never know what the future holds.
Don't limit yourself.
I definitely won't. After this project has definitely showed me a lot of different things that I can do what I dream about and that art can be possible as a career. So it's definitely opened my eyes a lot.
So, what have you learned from this whole process?
Well, first off, my biggest learning experience was the time limit placed on me, because it really tested my ability. I mean, I haven't slept a full night in 3 weeks. I woke up at 2 a.m. last night reciting the speech in my sleep. So it's definitely taught me that even though I wanted to quit at the beginning, that I can do really anything if I really, really push myself to. And alongside this, it's really taught me a lot about AI because I have been in journalism since my sophomore year, so I've really seen firsthand benefits or impacts on that AI has on journalism and writers in general. But this wasn't something that I knew much about the impact of art. So through this project, I was able to research that greatly and learn a lot about that as well.
Say then you probably learned a lot about the feeling that the individual has that AI doesn't have.
Yes, I learned a lot about that because while you can see like from AI art, you can see like some things are wonky, some things are out of place. I didn't really know like the main hard differences between human artists and AI artists. So I definitely deep dived into that on most nights, and that was something that I really was passionate about researching.
I know a lot of art has been created out of something a person was going through at the time.
Right. And AI just cannot do that because of its inability to feel emotions. So it's like if artists are putting all these hours and their feelings into their works, I really don't think this can be replaced by a machine that cannot do the same thing.
As someone that's doing good to draw a straight line,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm just, even the painting that's not finished,
Mhm.
it doesn't, I mean, I could look at that, art is about interpretation, and I could look at that and see that I don't know, maybe it is finished, but I don't know, you're just very talented and I'm very jealous.
Thank you.
If I might add to that, so obviously I'm not an artist, so I don't know anything about scaling and all that. So for example, I didn't understand that for creating a larger version of an image, you had to use the grid lines. But the fact that you have an incomplete piece that shows those grid lines,
Right.
you taught me a concept about art right there.
I feel like it definitely shows the process better. And that's not something that most people think about because art, when you print out the photo, as you can see, it's about this big. But if you want to create a piece this big, you have to do something to be able to increase the image that you chose to be able to get those proportions correctly. And it was definitely something that I spent like 2 years doing because I did not understand mapping grid lines for a long time. So.
Well, I think your story would be a true inspiration for a lot of students, younger than you, that do have all year.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you just, I mean, it's not been that long ago. You were doing this, but I have a sophomore, and I can see, I don't know, just the fact that you were able to do all of this in 5 weeks is amazing. And I'm just blown away.
Thank you.
Blown away.
An entire year's worth of work
in 5 weeks while also balancing my 8 other classes and moving and unpacking my house.
And girl, I hope you go home tonight all night.
I plan on it.
Oh wow.
I just can't imagine doing that for a short period of time.
Yeah, it was rough. Anything else? Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay if I put on? Yeah. And I have this control. Real quick to make sure you understand.
My judge is ready. Are my judges ready? So, you ever on a random day, just your vehicle, a random part goes out on your vehicle, it doesn't matter rain or shine, no matter what time or anywhere it happens in the day, but also comes out super expensive to fix. Or you're sitting behind a dump truck and a rock comes out of the wheel and it hits your car or your truck and it chips your paint, dents it. Or you're sitting in a hailstorm, it hits your car, it also dents it or it chips it. And it also comes out super expensive. And people do this in a way so that we take our vehicles back to our manufacturers that made the vehicle so that we spend our money on it and we don't have to work on our vehicles anymore. But in my opinion, we should be able to work on our vehicles any sort of way we want. My name is Devin Brown and my subject is painting a vehicle. What exactly makes us have to paint our vehicle? Bugs, the acidicness in their stomachs. It sits on the paint and it rots away, causing it to flake off or it just chips gradually away. Tree sap, also acidicness. You're sitting up under a tree and it sits on there. You have to either peel it off or it's really pain to wash it off. Eggs, because teenagers, they can be dumb sometimes, which I'm also a teenager, so I would know. And it causes the paint to rot if you do not wash it off as soon as possible. Ice, in the winter, you have a bad day and it just sits on your paint, causing it to chip, or it's on the road and it flings up from your tires up into your fender wells. Salt, also on an icy day or something, that's salt on the road, it gets up under your vehicle, sits on the frame, or it sits up under your fender wells and causing it to sit and rot, which also needs to be washed off as soon as possible. Tar, it's a little bit worse. You have to peel it off because it sits there and you can't really wash it off or anything because it's so sticky because it has to stick to the ground. Bird droppings, also acidicness from their stomachs, causing it to just sit there. Yeah, you might not notice it as much as possible because it could be sitting on the roof of your vehicle. Gasoline, sitting at a pump, you drop a little bit on your car. You don't really think much of it, but it chips away your paint. Food and dust. Precautions for painting. A good suit, preferably you want to have a good suit because the metals and all the chemicals in it are made to withstand all the weather conditions that are thrown upon us. So if that gets into your skin, it can cause skin cancer or any other precaution or anything else that can be dangerous. Gloves, also the same reason. It can get in your hands super easily. And a respirator mask. Also, those chemicals, all the metals such as lead, it can get down into your lungs, cause hard breathing or cancer or maybe even worse over time. Prepping for paint. Covering certain areas such as your windshield, your mirrors, other windows, wheels, or anything you don't want to get paint on, such as like a chrome bumper or something that you don't want paint on. A sander and primer. you want to have at least 1 to 2 coats of primer on your vehicle so it'll stick on there. Pulling and filling dents. You have to pull those dents out so your paint, when it's laid on there, it does not look wavy. And it comes out just not looking good at all. Your supplies that you need. Masking tape. You have to have that masking tape for anything that you have laid down over your windows, your wheels, anything. It tapes it off and it keeps it from wind blowing away if you're outside, or it just seals it off extra. Tarps. It can also be used such as like a newspaper or something that can cover the areas that you need covered. A paint gun. Sandpaper, preferably 40, 80, or 120 grit. It helps with the pattern that you sand down and how smoothly it has to be sanded down, which it matters to the mostly because if it's not sanded down enough, the paint won't stick. But if you sand it down just enough to where there's just a little bit of paint on there, you don't want to sand down to complete metal because it won't stick as well. But if it's just a little bit of paint on there, it will stick tremendously better. More supplies. A dent puller. Like I said, you have to pull those dents out. Otherwise, the paint will look wavy. Paint, primer. Like I said, you have to have at least 1 to 2 coats on there, maybe about 1.5, just a little extra light spray on there. Drill bits, that could be used for the dent puller, because when you have to pull a dent, some are deep enough that you have to drill in and then attach a certain dent puller on there to be able to pull it out. Welding and repairing. Cab corners, like on a truck or anything that is older, weather or dust, rain, anything it can get up on those cab corners, sitting up in there, especially if there's a hole in the cab corner, it will sit there and rot. Along with rocker panels, it needs to be either cut out along with the cab corners and it needs to be replaced. Your firewall. That is one of the most pain areas to get on a vehicle because the rain or you get pollen from a tree, sitting up under a tree, it gets down in between your hood and it sits there and it just rots and rots till it rusts out completely to where you have no more firewall, no metal or nothing. Even though I wasn't exactly able to paint a truck like I'd wanted to because I didn't have my truck at the time, the school was actually able to help me find a project and I was able to repaint the new woodshop classroom, which I am very thankful for. But it did come with some challenges. Changing product, obviously. It took time to find a new product, and it wasn't exactly how my research had went. So it made it a little bit more complicated. And cut time short, I was a little bit lazy, and I'd cut time super short, so I did everything last minute. Hopefully, in the near future, I am able to open up my own shop doing body work or working on a motor or transmissions or something. That is mainly the reason why I've done this research for vehicles, because I grew up turning wrenches, constantly working on vehicles. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
I was gonna ask, is auto body work or auto mechanic work something that you've been interested in and continue to be interested in?
Yes, it's always been something that's been there because ever since I was itty bitty, I'd be turning wrenches or I'd be painting on a little rocker panel or something.
Did you do the VOTEC program?
I was not in VOTEC. Due to transferring from schools, I wasn't exactly able to unless I was to be helped back. So I chose not to do that.
Want to go into that, it would be good if you could go into the VOTEC.
It would have been.
Graduate.
It still probably would be, but I'm also planning on going on the road as soon as I get out and graduate, and I'll be on an oil rig, but so I can build up my money and then I can go to school and get my business license to open up my own shop and do all the education I need to have.
Something that you know that you will enjoy doing, but never be a job.
No, it'd always be something I'd enjoy. It'd be like a little kid just playing with a little toy car or something.
What was your favorite part of the whole project?
I wouldn't necessarily had a favorite part of it. I mean, it was fun in some places I got to do something a little bit new, which I've painted rooms before, but it's not every day you get to do something like that. Don't mind me asking, what was my time on that?
See ya. Right back to Monday. Oh, yeah. I may not come back, you know, I may still be asleep.
Have a good one, Myra.
You too.
I'll be back.
Me too.
I didn't even realize it was. I didn't think about it.